Brian next.
Keep using the same. Thank you both, and I guess I have to keep my initial reactions to myself for the next round. I do have to admit that I feel a bit out of my depth and honored to be with colleagues who are really on the front lines in Jewish education. All of you at our conference and my colleagues here who work with kids and teens. I generally work with teachers, which puts me on a different line, and approach this work really from an academic perspective as a historian, not someone who's technically involved in Jewish education. But what I'd like to talk about a bit today is the concept of a digital revolution, and frame this in a way that maybe some of you are familiar with. I know in the last few years in the Jewish education realm, we've been hearing conversation about what is often called the digital divide, meaning some sort of generation gap. And in fact, that conversation is to some extent old, if you will. In that, even I know for a fact here in Cleveland that we've been addressing it for some time. There's a lot of good work that's done in the community to try to address whatever shortfall there might be in our graying educational community in terms of their technical knowledge of the world around us, of the, this concept that there are digital natives, our kids who are born into this world, and those of us who are, to some extent or another, digital immigrants. As I say, I believe that's an old conversation, that we need to know technology. You need to know how to make a PowerPoint, you need to know how to use a Word program, you need to know how to use a spreadsheet. And I think we've done a fair amount of work in trying to address that. In my experience working with teachers, I've been asked this for the last couple of years as I've delved into explorations of digital culture, that people are looking for all sorts of answers. Okay, what is it exactly that I need to know? What is it exactly that I'm supposed to do? What are the good electronic resources and websites? Tell me what it is, and then I'll go and do it. And this even goes so far as, we tell people now, well, you need to be out there on Facebook. You need to be out there on Twitter. And I think a lot of people in the Jewish education realm are doing that. But I want to spin our conversation elsewhere and not look at it as a digital divide, as a gap, for a couple of reasons. One is I think actual answers to this question, what is it I'm supposed to do, are very difficult to find, almost impossible. And the reason for that is that the attempts to close this gap, while helpful, really, I think, miss a major point, which is the truly revolutionary nature of the change that we're amidst right now. It's ongoing, and it's ongoing at an enormously rapid pace, to the extent that even if I did give you an answer today, and I really, I'm not being glib about this, next week, a month from now, that answer will really not help you very much if it's the type of answer like, here's how you make a PowerPoint, or here's a good website that you might want to go to for resources. And if you pay attention to some of the stuff, and I guess this is what crazy people like me do for fun, read works by social media consultants, and these are people who were media consultants but are now social media consultants. People like Clay Shirky, Doug Rishkoff, who actually did some Jewish-related work as well, and a lot of other people out there. And they talk about really a total paradigm shift that we find ourselves in. And I use the word revolutionary with respect to how individuals communicate and relate to one another. And this really has a connection to this notion of relevance. What is it they're connecting to, and how is it that they're connecting to it? How people understand notions like authority, which is of extreme importance in Jewish educational realm. How they understand the concept of community, which is also extremely important for us. And even the very word friendship has taken on connotations and overtones in our Facebook world that no one could have imagined 5 or 10 years ago. What does it mean to be someone's friend? Means something very different today if you live in that world. And to allude to something Naomi talked about, the concept of space as well. If you're looking for a safe space, well, what are we talking about when we use the word space? Are we looking at the physical realm? Is there a digital component as well? And when I use the word revolutionary, I want you to bear in mind, certainly as a historian, I don't do this lightly. There are certain points in time that we like to look to and say there was a revolutionary moment or epoch. Usually it's an epoch. It takes hundreds of years for that revolution to play itself out. Take the printing press if we want to look at communications examples. The printing press did change the way the world functioned, but it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in 5 or 10 years. It took over 100 years for that communications revolution to really have the impact that it did. And if you want to understand the relationship to Jewish education, think about how that changed the way that people educated themselves Jewishly and educated their children. What it meant for the Shulchan Aruch to come out at right about the same time that the printing press did. Enormously impacted. And as you move on, some of these revolutions, they've been compressed shorter and shorter as we've come closer to modernity. If you look at telephone and broadcast industry in terms of the way people have communicated, that took about a generation to become commonplace and become normative. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we live in a world where the digital revolution is upon us, and it's not taking 10, 15, 20, or 100 years to have that impact. The impact is really quick. We're not at the end of it, my guess is. We're probably much closer to the beginning of it. And here's the real kicker. Our students now, particularly our teenagers, they know that we're in this revolution. They have a really good sense that things are changing and that they're involved in it in a very powerful way, and that have important ramifications for all the things that you guys have just discussed: leadership, ongoing education, communal institutions, and certainly relevance as well. And I'll stop there.